right, is there a motion to open court? Available, please open court.
All rise. Dallas County Commissioners Court is now in session for the July 2012 term. The Honorable Judge Dean presiding. Please remain standing.
All right, our invocation today will be given by a guest of Commissioner Garcia.
Yes, Judge, and it's my pleasure to, ask Reverend Irene Jackson to come forward to the podium. She's the senior pastor of Southwood United Methodist Church in Dallas. She graduated with a Master of Divinity Magna Cum Laude from SMU in 2010. She received her Juris Doctor from the University of Texas School of Law, UT Austin, in 1974, and her BA from Baylor University in Waco in 1969. She and her husband, Charles Simpson, have been married for 17 years and made their home in Grand Prairie. She has 4 stepchildren, Steve, William, Pauline, Michael, and she also has 7 step-grandchildren. Reverend, thank you so much for being here with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Will you all please pray with me? Almighty God, creator and sustainer of the universe, we thank you for the blessing of this day, that you've given us this day to go about doing good wherever we have the opportunity. We thank you for the blessings of freedom that we experience in these United States, that we have the freedom to worship as we please in our churches, synagogues, mosques, and temples, or to refrain from worship at all, if that is our choice. We thank you that we are free to associate, to gather in groups if we would like to do that. And we thank you for freedom of speech, to state our opinions about our government and our elections, and that we have the freedom to elect our representatives. We thank you for those who serve in government, whether in elected positions or as civil servants, and for all their efforts to make our counties and states and cities a better place. We know that they often make decisions that are not pleasing to everyone, so we pray that you would help them with those burdens. We pray your blessings on this Dallas County Court today as they go about their business with the county. We request that you guide them with your wisdom in all the decisions and deliberations that they make today. We pray that your presence will bring about a spirit of cooperation and civility for all the participants in this session today, whether they're citizens attending here, the commissioners, their staff, and any others. We pray for the peace and understanding to spread throughout the world so that all peoples may make efforts to get along. And for all of those who think we have no influence on what happens in the entire world, help us to just within our own homes, in our places of business, where we work, where we shop, and in our churches, to bring about peace however we can, so that we may be numbered among some of the famous peacemakers in the past, Martin Luther King Jr., Dorothy Day, Mahatma Gandhi, Cesar Chavez, that we may be numbered among them rather than those who may follow other paths. Grant our requests, we pray. Amen.
Welcome to this meeting of the Dallas County Commissioners Court. Our session is comprised of 6 sessions. First, we'll hear resolutions. Today, we will hold 2 public hearings. I expect those will be brief. Next, we'll consider our official agenda. There are speakers on at least one item of that. Those speakers will be heard at that time before we vote. Next, we will recess for our court's informal work session, known as our briefing session. Then we will listen to any remaining speakers who were not here on a specific item on our agenda. And finally, we'll convene for our closed session to consider items as allowed for a future action in a subsequent session. So with that in mind, I'll begin with the resolution today. The first resolution is from Commissioner Price.
Judge, Commissioner, this morning we're pleased to present a resolution to very, very good friend. It says, whereas Frederick Ray Meyer has served this community and this nation honorably by his service as a member of the United States Army. And whereas Frederick Ray Meyer, known as Fred to his friends, was a comprehensive leader in the truest sense of the word, and has proven so by his work in the corporate world, as well as in the beautiful way in which he has served in key roles on 18 boards and commissions, both profit and non-profit. Whereas Fred Meyer is an original devotee and disciple of Dr. Ken Cooper, who served as treasurer and CEO of the internationally acclaimed Cooper Institute, and personally ran in excess of 35,000 miles in his lifetime and climbed some of the highest mountains west of the Mississippi River, and most of these feats were completed after age 65. And whereas Fred is well known as a devout family man and a husband, as well as a devoted father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, whereas Fred served Dallas County with dignity and distinction as the Republican County Chairman, and went on to serve Dallas and all of Texas as the Republican State Chairman from 1988 to 1994. And whereas Fred rendered outstanding service as Chairman of President George W. Bush's 2000 Victory Committee in Washington, D.C., and has been a pivotal player in bringing the George W. Bush Presidential Center to Dallas and to Dallas County. And whereas, even as a die-hard partisan, Fred Meyer reached across the aisle, made friends, and earned the respect of many Dallas citizens in the Democratic Party, and count friends in all neighborhoods around our city, county, and throughout our state. And whereas Frederick Ray Meyer has fleshed out the words and wisdom of Henry David Thoreau, who once said, "Be true to your word and your friend," to which all of his family, his friends, his church, his city, his county, his state, and this nation can attest. Now therefore be it resolved that the Dallas County Commissioners Court does hereby, with great pride, recognize and show reverence to the life's work and contributions of Frederick Ray Meyer, and for his historic way in which he has postulated democracy, modeled civility, and created the climate for justice and fairness among all people. And so much. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. The second resolution, I believe our last resolution today, is a resolution that I am moving for adoption to the court. And approximately, approximately 50 minutes, Governor Terry will hold a meeting with 8 finance persons of the 8 county hospitals across the state. We've been asked for our opinions for that meeting, and this resolution is an attempt to capture our opinions on that at the request of HHS and the governor's office. And the resolution reads as follows. Whereas the court has concerns regarding Medicaid disproportionate share hospital DSH programs, we are aware that several private hospital systems have met with Governor Terry in an attempt to alter recommended reforms of the DSH program. We also understand they have requested that hospital districts be required to intergovernmentally transfer local tax dollars on their DSH payments. Whereas it is our understanding that there is a follow-up meeting between the private hospitals and public hospitals to further discuss these issues. In anticipation of this meeting, we want to make sure that the governor's office is aware of the relevant facts surrounding DSH and our position, the position of our Commissioners Court regarding future funding of DSH. And whereas DSH is a statewide program,
over 160 hospitals qualify for these payments. However, historically, the program has not been funded by state revenues, but it's been financed through intergovernmental transfers by 8 public hospital districts. In FY11, these hospital districts transferred $488 million to the state to fund the state's share of the DSH payments. For FY12, private hospitals have demanded that the public hospital districts be required to intergovernmentally transfer $563 million. And whereas to ensure stability in the program in the interest of compromise, transferring hospitals agreed to increase the IGT for FY12 to $502 million. Despite this commitment, the private hospitals did insist that the public hospitals fully fund DSH up to $573 million, and whereas in FY11, private hospitals received a total of $593 million in DSH payments. By contrast, the public hospitals, after subtracting the IGT amounts, received only $161 million. For FY12, absent reform of the program, private hospitals would receive $706 million, increasing over $100 million, while net payments to public hospitals would decline to $92 million. Whereas public hospitals have proposed modest reforms to the DSH program, the Health and Human Services Commission proposed rule to reflect the public hospitals' requested changes and invited public comment. We support programmatic reform of the DSH program. We believe that Health and Human Services should proceed to immediately adopt the rule and implement DSH reform. Whereas the bigger issue is future funding of DSH, it is apparent to us that 8 public hospital districts simply can no longer afford to finance a statewide program, especially given the disparity between the payments received by public and private hospitals. In FY12, if our public hospital districts were to finance DSH in the amount demanded by the private hospital systems, it would cost our local taxpayers over $140 million in lost federal funds. And whereas we recognize the importance of DSH to many hospitals, ours included, and we are committed to working with the governor to ensure continuation of this important program, the program must be funded on a more equitable and comprehensive basis. Whereas we want to make clear we support the decision of public hospitals not to intergovernmentally transfer local tax dollars for support of the DSH program in fiscal year 13. At the same time, we're willing to work with private and public hospitals to find broad-based hospital sources of local funding. For example, if a solution between the parties is unable to be reached, many of us would support legislation to authorize collection of an uninsured and uncompensated care cost recovery assessment on a local option basis. The assessment would be made on all hospitals within our jurisdiction to raise the required state share of DSH, and whereas we believe such financing should be optional, but participation in DSH would be conditioned on local approval and collection of the cost recovery assessment. For those communities and private hospitals that want to support DSH, a local assessment would be imposed. The hospital would participate in DSH. While this would require the hospital to put up money, its return would be significant. If the hospitals do not want to support the program, they would not participate in DSH. We also recognize that there is a need to be an alternative funding source for rural and children's hospitals. Whereas we do not wish to harm private hospitals with the DSH program, if the DSH program is to survive, it cannot be funded by only 8 public hospital districts. Now therefore, be it resolved, the Dallas County Commissioners Court hereby recognizes that it is in the public interest and the interest of public and private hospitals that currently receive DSH payments to also financially support the DSH program, and I so vote.
I second that motion.
Discussion.
Any discussion?
Well, first of all, I'm not, you're asking me to take comfort of in that resolution, and I don't have it. I just find it interesting it's been sprung on us at this particular time. You know, our arms have always, with the IGT program, have always been our hands tied behind our back. While it sounds good with regards to the appropriations and what we have done, I'm still, the more I read, I'm not there. They're asking, I think this is a state that has made its intentions known in a number of ways, and you're asking us to buy into it.
Well, this language has been approved by and assisted in the drafting by the consultant for all the public hospitals in Texas, John Dragovitz, and his contemporaries, some of which don't have the title of CFO, but for instance, Bob Eccles, others, David Lopez throughout Texas, who are the people in each district that are most involved in this. And the letter that was sent by me and I think the 8 other county judges yesterday, which was very similar to yesterday evening, was generated after after Health and Human Services convened a call of the 5 county judges in the largest hospital districts and the 5 CFOs or equivalents in the largest hospital districts, I believe last week and last Thursday perhaps. And I said we consider the language when we received it now, as you know from my email last night, we did not receive the language that was satisfactory to all parties with the public hospitals until shortly before you received it last night. I am sensitive to the fact that situations like this, we would normally like to have more time before taking a public position. As luck would have it, situations outside of our control, other counties with other hospitals and with other drafters, led us getting this information yesterday evening. And the situation is the governor would like, as much of the signals he can get in the next 40 minutes before the meeting. So, for that reason, and I will say this, as you know, I've tried to steep myself in this hospital finance piece for Parkland. And I understand what you're saying about Medicaid expansion and some of these other matters, but this is separate from that. This DISH piece is separated from that. It falls under our Medicaid waiver that we got predating the Supreme Court decision. And it really, in a nutshell, boils down to this. The privates want, in Dallas County, want us to put up an additional, $50 million. And that would cost our taxpayers $140 million. Well, it cost us that 50, but it ultimately cost us $140 million. So it's a matter of, I want to help the privates and I want to work to find a solution, but I think we did.
But what have we been putting?
Well,
Like
under UPL it worked differently. Under UPL, we got more money back on what we put up, but under this program, as you see from this resolution, we would lose $100 million. They go up $100 million to 706 next year, and the private, the publics like us would go down to 92 million. What's happened is the reimbursement levels for us have changed. It's complex, but the reimbursement levels for us have changed on DISH, and if we stay status quo, it won't truly be status quo because our taxpayers won't get reimbursed. It will be subsidization. Yeah.
Those figures are in the letter, what we put up and what we're being asked to put up. And it's hard to discuss a letter in detail, but it's kind of inside baseball and going to all those figures when people don't have a letter in front of them. But bottom line is that the public hospitals, the 8 public hospitals, the safety net hospitals have been putting up the DISH for the putting up money for private hospitals. And the number of private hospitals has grown. There are now 130 private hospitals that are receiving it. And it's become an unsustainable burden for the public hospitals. I've talked to Mr. Dragovich at some length about this. He feels that this is a very good plan. Yesterday, the judge and I both talked to folks at HHSC in Austin, and they feel that this is the only way that this program can be sustained is if the private hospitals join in and help to fund this DISH program or opt out of it, but the public hospitals can't continue to support them. And I think that's about as simple an explanation as I could give, but I certainly will endorse this letter. So.
I think it's been back to the fact that we act as though the private hospitals haven't been our partners as we've gone forward.
They absolutely have.
And the intergovernmental transfer, that's not new. We've been on that. I'm still concerned that, how do you take and factor in what the private hospitals have done with regards to the whole, whether we call it charity care or non-compensated care. I know there's a difference. But they have, we call ourselves a safety net hospital only because this state has fashioned it in such a way that the 8th largest hospital became the IGT. We understand all of that. We act as though private hospitals haven't been a participating partner.
Certainly, that's not my position. The private hospitals are a vital part of our safety net.
Exactly.
I want us to find a reasonable resolution to this in the next 25 days, and I'm working with the CEOs of the private hospitals and the state to try to find that. But it gets down to this. Right now, Dallas County taxpayers are subsidized. If we do the DISH program as it currently sits and we don't adopt Health and Human Services proposed rules, then Dallas County taxpayers will subsidize hospital corporations like Presbyterian and Baylor, and will be subsidizing care in places like Plano and in Ellis County and in surrounding counties. And I am for quality care at all the Baylor and Presbyterian and Methodist affiliates. That's why this position that all the public hospitals in the state have taken on a local option where those companies, those entities, those hospitals could do a local option if they choose to, could assess themselves a recovery fee, could put up the fee and draw down 4 times as much money if they choose to, but it's the public hospital's position, and it's my position, that the taxpayers should not subsidize that. The taxpayers should subsidize the county hospital district. And that's also the position of the 8 or the 7 other hospital districts. The reason I'm bringing this forth in resolution form, and maybe perhaps some of the people on that call are not, but I am keenly aware that this court has given me the latitude to work on this Parkland issue, but that I am not in charge of Parkland. And so when asked to do a letter that states the court's position, I've asked that a letter that is acceptable to all 8 hospitals be provided to me so I can turn in a resolution and take it before this court. Tom Cease in the governor's office has asked that whatever I do, or we do, rather, be something that is known by them by 10 o'clock today. We got their language that everyone agreed to last night. It's an unfortunate, unusual situation because I think it is important that commissioners have time to read things, and you have time to discuss things. It's the best I can do on this one because of the fast-moving situation of hospital
I'm in support of the resolution today. I think Parkland has been a good team player with the private hospitals. We sort of initiated the IGT program, and under the new rules, it penalizes Parkland. And there have been some different strategies that have been proffered that will help continue to reimburse those private hospitals for and compensate them for indigent care. Not necessarily outside of Dallas County, even though they're system hospitals and they have facilities located outside of Dallas County. But what this does, well, private hospitals also have in the district, they have an opportunity to get reimbursed, but they also have to put up money. And see, so that's a problem. That's why we're going the direction that they're going here, and in talking to individuals such as graduates and others, it's important that we stay strong at the state level, knowing that we're still working behind the scenes, and we've engaged those individuals to be able to help us construct something so that we can stay a team. But it may just be in Dallas County and not the region this time. And it doesn't penalize our taxpayers. But we didn't change the rule. And we started the IGP because private hospitals couldn't draw down it. So we actually put that up and it benefited Parkland, but it also benefited them and benefited the citizens. So, and I think the private hospitals know that we're team players. But we also don't need the rug swept out. We don't need this at the state level while we're trying to negotiate in good faith to get them as much as we can, but still not penalizing our taxpayers here in Dallas.
And I'm going to support the resolution for the same reason. I totally agree with Commissioner Control's point. And at this point, this has to be a partnership. At the end of the day, we're not going to have any other option. So I would be supporting the resolution.
I call the question.
All those in favor? It's an abstention. So show one abstention on that. Commissioner Price is abstaining. It's good on that. Staff and Ruby, if you can hear me, and there's a couple of typos in that. We're looking at very safety because we also sent him a letter. If that could be changed and signed and faxed very quickly, that would be good. Please work to do that now because I want them to have it by 10 o'clock. All right, that takes us to our, we had another resolution. Someone may have seen the agenda. It's been pulled. It's a resolution for our friend John Dragovich, who is doing a tremendous job for us in the face of having given his notes at Parkland. He's at the meeting that starts in 30 minutes, so he's not here to get a resolution. And we wanted to honor John when he was here. So we pull that. We'll bring it back in August, and we'll bring it back, but for anyone that, it's not because we don't love John. We will now consider item 8, the consent agenda. The motion on the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? I will now consider item 9, discussion for public comments regarding the proposed projects, the Dallas County Community Development Block Grant and Home Objectives for proposed use of funds for fiscal year 12 and 13 and of the annual action plan.
Move to open the public hearing.
And I second.
We've got at least one motion and a second, so all those in favor of opening the hearing? Mr. Velasco, will you please lead us through that public hearing?
This is the second of 2 public hearings we're required to hold as we begin to allocate $2.6 million of CDBG home funding that will be available October 1st. We had our first public hearing in May. In addition to this public hearing and one we held 2 months ago, each of the 13 cities that are proposing to use our $2.6 million is becoming available have also held public hearings of their own. We're also in the middle of a 30-day public comment period. That will expire July 21st. So in addition to providing comments today, the public will have the opportunity to provide staff with additional remarks over the next 2 to 3 weeks. All final decisions that the court reaches have to be forwarded to HUD by August 15th. In accordance with that schedule, we're anticipating having something on your formal agenda for August 7th for final consideration and adoption. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
July 31st is the deadline for it.
July 21st is the deadline for the official 30-day public comment period. So even after that comment, there'll still be a period of about 2 to 3 weeks before the final proposal will come to the court for consideration.
And in order to be totally complicit with the last plan, we have until the end of July, 1st of August to make sure all those projects are in queue.
Yes.
Public speakers. Any public speakers? Any public speakers? Any public speakers?
Make a motion to close the public hearing in regards to the CDBG FY 12-13-2012 annual action plan.
And I second that motion.
All those in favor? All right, next we will consider item 10, a discussion of public comment regarding the housing choice voucher plan.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? Mr. Thompson will lead that discussion.
Judge, Commissioners, this is the annual housing choice voucher plan the Dallas County Housing Agency brings forth every year. There are minor updates that we make to our administrative plan. It is a requirement per HUD that we bring this forward for approval. We have published the document in the Dallas Morning News. We basically are looking at 3,813 housing vouchers that Dallas County administers every year. We're looking at around $26 million a year budget. So as you look at it, we've not had any findings as it relates to our housing program, and it's on good standing with HUD, good standing with OIG, and all the respective parties who evaluate our program.
The 3,800 is an annual number.
It's an annual number where we're able to bring in individuals off of our waiting list. As people cycle off, we're able to bring people on from our waiting list, and so we are able to stay with a stagnant around 3,800, 3,813 every year.
Speaking of the waiting list, where are we in regards to the waiting list?
The waiting list is going very smoothly. We have enough people on our waiting list that we don't have to reopen our waiting list for at least possibly 3, 4, maybe even 5 years from now. But based on our last year's waiting list opening, we had close to 5,000 people who signed up, and so therefore our waiting list is in good shape. I want to point out that there's a difference between a housing agency and a housing authority. We basically are dealing with an opt-out program. Not so. Please, for those who are listening, you can't compare us to the Dallas Housing Authority. They have housing stock. They have the ability to acquire property. We basically deal with opt-out properties. For example, if there is an apartment complex who no longer wants to be a part of the housing and urban development, they may have 13 tenants in that apartment complex. They can opt out to come over to our program. So that's how this program is developed. We don't have a large number of clients. We don't have a housing stock. We're a housing agency. And so I just want to make sure that there's a differential between the two, a housing authority and a housing agency, to make sure we're clear on that. So that 3,800 is really up from where we started some almost 16, 17 years ago. We started with 12 certificates, as they call them. We haven't kind of date ourselves here, but there were 12 certificates, and now we're up to 3,800 vouchers.
Mr. Thompson, there are a number of housing authorities in other cities.
Housing authority, or they could be considered housing agencies. Exactly. You may be looking at in this area at least 10, right off the top, it could be 10 housing agencies that are dealing with this particular area. The Dallas area. There was no comments during that publication that we had. Thank you for your time.
And this is only one public hearing.
One public hearing that kind of delineates the plans here. We do, and that's why we bring it back every year in terms of our review of our plans.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you.
Any public comment? Any public comment? Any public comment? Hearing none.
Judge, I move the public hearing closed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Judge, are we at court orders?
Here we are, court.
All right, well, I would like to make a motion that we move that court orders 11 through 54 be accepted and pulling for further discussion, court orders numbers 16, 17, 18, 27, and 31.
And we'll make her accept a friendly amendment to that because we're also pulling 23, or make it 23 is pulled it. And we're pulling court order 15, if anyone wants to discuss 15, could you please do that in closed session as that is an ongoing negotiation.
I was going to ask for a friendly amendment after the court orders 11 through 54 were passed, but I can do that now.
No, that's fine. I'm just saying that we need to also pull 15 and 23.
15 and 23.
If I understand, 15, 16, 17, 18, 23, 27, 31, is that correct?
Is that correct? I don't-
That's the motion that I made. And with the addition of 23 and 15, so if I may restate it, I move that we pass court orders 11 through 54, holding for separate discussion number 15, 16, 17, 18, 23, 27, and 31.
The only modification of that is 23 won't be for separate discussion. It is pulled by the maker.
Okay.
Is the only one for 23?
It's the only one that's been pulled by the maker.
Okay.
Okay, so 23 is not.
So I think what I have is a motion to pull for separate discussion, and to the extent there needs to be a discussion on 15, it needs to be in closed session. 15, 16, 17, 18, 27, 31, and pulling from discussion on this agenda 23. Is that the motion I have?
Yes.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Judge, if you will show me abstaining on order 44.
And on court order 14, I need to make sure that we have clarity with regards to that court order. That's part of the medical mod piece. And even though this is a person that's already employed, first of all, with the Sheriff's Department.
Correct. Sergeant, the Sheriff's Office, and due to the fact that we still have some existing sergeants that we're kind of holding because we're closing in Georgetown, they will not be going back to the position.
I want to make sure that that's part of commentary with the court order. I understand the restructuring need and support it. I'm just making sure that that's very clear. Some more.
Call the question?
All right, all those in favor? And please show Commissioner Cantrell as abstaining on court order 44.
Judge, I would like to move court order number 16, and I would like to ask the maker of that court order to consider a friendly amendment to accept revised court order 16, which I have read, and I think better expresses the intent of the briefing that we had last week.
I will second that and accept the friendly amendment. Move that for discussion. And Shay, could you please come get these changes to the resolutions back over changes so we can get that sent out, signed and sent out. What the word do?
Judge, I heard a motion and second that. I'd like to make a substitute motion. On the revised 16, a substitute motion would be to approve Order 16 in its revised state that amending the policy and procedures for restoring all records on the third paragraph, taking out in the fourth line down, taking out the statement for handling boxes containing those documents. So that paragraph would actually state, public service program enrollees should not access any sensitive and/or confidential information or government records, since documents subject to destruction may contain sensitive and/or confidential information. Enrollees are prohibited from handling or viewing those documents, period. So it'd be deleted for handling boxes containing those documents.
And they could handle they could not handle the document, but if those documents happen to be in a box, they could handle that.
And that's my substitute motion. I don't know if I have a second.
Got a second?
And I show me as being against that because it really shreds the intent of the briefing.
And to the extent that is amendment, it's not accepted by the member.
It's not amendment, it's council, this is going to be a substitute motion.
Well, shall we discuss both then?
Sure. And since mine's going to be up first, then if I could go ahead and discuss it, is that permissible or that's wrong?
You're welcome to lay yours out first, and we'll discuss the next. Go ahead, sir.
Well, with regards to your revised Order 16, you went in and took basically what was in your court order and what was in my Order 17 and merged them. I think you did an excellent job in that, so thank you. And you and I discussed the policy, the underlying policy behind that court order, and your revision, 12th revision to that policy basically took the information from my policy on Order 17 and yours on 16 and combined those. And I think it made it into a stronger policy. So I commend you for that, Judge. And I think we got real close on where we were. I think there is a philosophical difference, and that will come out in Order 18 in just a moment when we discuss that. But for the purposes of this, the current practice has been for recycling and shredding. In the recycling, you have 80-plus enrollees that show up on the weekend, and there's large tables over the community service location. That supervision ratio is 1 to 40, and those individuals on sorting handle documents. They handle documents. So what this policy does in this quarter is it removes those enrollees from handling documents. The statement that I took out for handling boxes containing those documents, because I have a separate court order on the movement of boxes, I will address that there. But under this court order, if it passes, it will effectively do away with the recycling, the sorting, so people will not be handling documents. And every document that is generated that is not shredded at the department level will be placed in a locked bin. And they will be picked up, they may be picked up, and the judge, I had shall, he put may, so mandatory versus permissive, I had no problem with that. So they may pick up, I'm taking the judge's terminology, they may be picked up by the PSCP enrollees. And what that allows us to do is, they're in locked bins. We have 40 different locations. The vendor can pick those the vendor can come to one central location where the community service enrollees can come pick up those bins and bring them to one location. And that's certainly, I think, in the best interest of Dallas County. So there's no longer people making a decision, does this go into the shred bin or the non-shred bin or recycle bin? And everything will be shredded, so in place of not bin. So that's why we moved that particular language from the policy.
Any other comments?
Well, I think that Commissioner Cantrell makes a very important point, because once the documents are shredded, we're really allowing PSP to continue to do some of the transfer. Do I understand that correctly?
Under both plans.
Under both plans.
But in the amendment as well? And the substitutes? Substitutes, yeah.
Does this leave you all scratching your head a little bit?
No.
I mean, let's talk about, let's get real basic.
She asked a
I'm
question.
talking about
I think the question was rhetorical, so we'll allow it. Go ahead.
this leaves me scratching my head.
No.
It seems like I've observed in the history of the court, when there's a controversial issue, that sometimes the court tends to obfuscate what's going on. And it becomes so complicated, it's really hard to understand. And so let me just simplify this, because it's real easy. We get into we get into transporting documents and putting them in cryback, and we've probably shredded a dozen trees over this issue. But the bottom line is this. The question is, do we want public service people, many of whom have a criminal background, to be handling the sensitive records of the people of Dallas County? That's the bottom line. A vote for revised Court Order 16, which I put forth as a friendly amendment to the judge, and he accepted as a maker of that amendment, means that we're voting for the PCP people who may have criminal backgrounds, not to be able to handle the sensitive information of this county. It's a vote for the public. It's a vote for the safety of the public. A vote for the substitute 16 or 17 or 18, those are some of the trees that got killed to obfuscate this issue, in my opinion, is for the protecting a program in Dallas County, which has kind of become, in my opinion, a sacred cow, something that's not to be messed with, and it protects the program rather than the public.
Need to be heard on this issue as well. I don't question the intentions of any of the court members, including Commissioner Cantrell and Commissioner Price, in their reasoning behind their proposals. But I agree with Commissioner Dickey that the issue before this court is whether or not a majority of the court wants to prohibit public service program enrollees from handling or accessing sensitive or confidential information during the document destruction process. Revised Court Order 16 accomplishes that goal. Court Order 17 leaves a situation open for that to still occur and does not accomplish that goal. Here's the sentence that we're down to now on this agreement. The sentence that was objected to yesterday is a sentence in 16. Since documents subject to destruction may contain sensitive or confidential information, enrollees are prohibited from handling or viewing those documents or handling boxes containing those documents. I was told that was our only disagreement, and I offered to add the words during the document destruction process, because it was understood by me that Commissioner Cantrell, as he's told us today, was concerned that handling boxes would be a comment on 18, which would, if he were able to pass 18, would affect 18. I wanted to make this issue very clear. This is about PSP enrollees accessing information during the shred process. That is the only thing left that we are arguing about. All of these talks about cost and those things have gone by the wayside as we dug into the numbers and found that the new program actually saves the taxpayers money. We're left with this one issue. And again, I don't question the good faith of the other commissioners. Some of us believe that identity theft is a real risk if PSP enrollees are able to access documents. Others believe it's less of a significant risk in weighing it against the undeniable benefit of having people that aren't charging us money to move things for us. Here's what we would be left with if we pass Commissioner Cantrell's substitute. We would be left, according to Commissioner Cantrell, with at least this. PSP enrollees would be in the Secure Document Record Center moving boxes that were unsecured. They would secure them. The PSP enrollee would secure them after they lift them off the shelf. There would be individuals in place that are county employees, but PSP enrollees would have access to those boxes. A big difference that we have, before we get to discussing transported boxes that contain government records that are not being shredded, I think you have a higher risk if you let people access information they know all the evidence is about to be shredded. If I were inclined to steal identities, I would be more likely to steal something that's about to be shredded as opposed to something that someone will discover 2 months later and know I'm the person who moved it. So I think it's very important, thank you, I think it's very important that I think the difference between our two, and I appreciate the spirit in which we collapsed this down to this one little line, but I think it is a significant difference, and that's why I can't support your substitute, because it has the language in it from Revised 16, but not the protection.
And I just want to, add my 5 cents. First of all, I want to thank you and all the Commissioner Deep and Commissioner Cantrell that work on all these items. However, all along I've been saying that cost is a big issue. You sent a memo in the revised order that we got at 10 o'clock on Sunday that actually this makes $10,762. However, Judge, working with the staff has not had the opportunity to bend this out. And obviously, I still feel strongly that looking at other municipalities' destruction policies, just a few days ago, the city of Dallas uses people working on fines and sentences from municipal court, even to scan documents on electronic storage. Not only that, they also use a company for free document destruction. I don't mind revise a policy that has some flaws, and I obviously feel that this is one of them. However, when we can do a better job utilizing all the programs that we have in Dallas County, I think it's just crazy not to look at the opportunity to make this better. So I will be supporting Commissioner Cantrell's substitute motion, not only because it's the middle of the road, it makes documents safer, but at the same time continues to allow public safety personnel to be part of this process. And I will ask Commissioner Cantrell if I can add to your substitute to please review this program in a year so we can see how the effectiveness of what we're moving on today.
And the court reviewed in a year?
Yes. That
I'll
staff reads
accept
the
the,
results of the program and the savings of this program,
I'll accept
because
the premium.
I don't buy anything without knowing how much I'm going to pay for it. And I do believe safety is very important. I totally agree with Commissioner Dickey and the judge comments. But colleagues, it's about finding the best process. And I'm not totally convinced that we have the best process. So Judge, I will be supporting Commissioner Cantrell's substitute motion with the small amendment that I put.
That'll be out that the maker makes, the seconder accepts, and what was very highlighted in that at the city of Dallas is scan, which means they handle the documents. Anyway,
And I will
we got
give
speakers.
the points that I got to Mr. Martin, so staff can look into it.
Judge, before you call the question, I
We have
just-
speakers.
Would you want me to make a comment now or after the speaker?
Suppose we should hear from the speakers and then anyone, one that wants to, or go ahead, make a comment with the speakers on both questions.
Okay, well, I just had a short comment, and that is that personally, I feel that this is a very important issue, and if in the future someone comes to this court and says that their identity has been stolen, or that their confidential records, such as their medical records or their psychological records, have been made public, as happened about 8 months ago, then I don't want it on my, I don't want to be responsible for having voted to keep this process which allows this to happen. Thank you.
Just in response, I just want a point of clarification. You compared my substitute with Order 17. I want to be very clear. The substitute motion is to accept your 16 in its revised state in its totality and only modifies one sentence in the policy by taking out the movement of boxes, and I'm going to deal with that in just a minute, 18, and I do have comments on that. So I just want to make sure that when you make that comparison, this is passing Court Order 16 in its revised state and amending the policy by deleting 6 words out of the policy. Also, we also talk about accessing information. And I'll address that when we get to the box issue, if this court order passes.
And in response to that, let me make clear, I understand that what you're talking about is revised 16, taking out the sentence prohibiting public service enrollees from having access to the documents or moving boxes. And what I had offered to do is make it clear that that is in the shredding process, so it would not affect your proposed 18. What the court has done today is chosen to leave public service enrollees in the handling of sensitive information. I disagree with that, so I will not be voting for this.
Well, I respectfully disagree with your characterization of leaving public service enrollees handling sensitive information. That is, and philosophically, we totally disagree. There's a difference between handling a document and handling a box, or if you want to go that direction, handling a bin, even though it's locked. In other words, it's the same thing. It's relative. You have a locked bin or you have a secure box. Now, we can argue. You can overreach or you can overreact. It's not unlike the ropes that we have today in the courtroom. Sometimes, philosophically, people differ on how far should you go. And we differ. People can undo locks. But I'm going to get to the box issue, and I understand that's a problem of yours, but I disagree with your characterization of enrollees still having access to documents.
Judge, why are we making this so complicated?
Yeah, I think there really is a simple matter. You're either voting for revised 16 with the prohibition against viewing documents or handling boxes, or you're voting against it. We know where folks are on that, so it's really not even further discussion.
Judge, it's not viewing documents. I'm opposed for them viewing documents, so don't. It's that or handling boxes containing these documents. Okay. That's what we're taking out.
Or handling the unsecured boxes.
No, that's not what I'm asking. It says what you're taking out here is for handling boxes containing those documents. That's what I'm taking out.
As complicated as folks as it may seemed to some members of the court, it seemed pretty clear to me. So let's have the speakers and call the question. Okay. Our first speaker is Glenn Wooten. Oh, I'm sorry. We've got our rules of decorum. So please, if you will please read our rules of decorum.
All Commissioner Court attendees are hereby advised that this meeting is conducted in accordance with the provisions of the Dallas County Code, Section 74-71. Visitors and registered speakers are to preserve order and decorum at all times. Personal, profane, or slanderous remarks are not appropriate and will not be allowed at any time during this public meeting. Any and all applause is to be kept brief and observant of time constraints. Disruptive visitors and/or registered speakers may be removed and are subject to the penalties provided in the State of Texas Penal Code Section 38.13, 42.01, and 42.05. Registered individual speakers are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and the maximum discussion on any one topic is limited to 30 minutes.
Ms. Wooten, you know our rules, so please state your name, your address, and here's the beeps. You know all that, so please tell us what's on your mind.
Yes, good morning, board. My name is Dwayne Wooten. I live at 1000 Brisbane, Dallas, Texas. Sometimes people talk about that people shredding documents. As a former coordinator of the drug organization, sent a letter to white man came to our facility and asked us to do some research on how they were getting information to steal identity theft. So I interviewed the client. They gave us that information. The people that you're saying shouldn't shred documents are the ones that told you how to stop to start shredding documents. They were the ones who said that the liquor store receipts, the receipts you throw away your trash can, that's where they get your identity from. He took it to the state, got all kind of accolades. I mean, they was glad he gave them that information. And I'd like to say that if a person is working for the county and trying to, must be some kind of volunteer stuff, because I didn't get any in-depth information. I heard you last week. And these people are not trying to go to jail. They're trying to get out of jail. They know how to steal your identity. They told you to start shredding your stuff. They told you to stop putting your Social Security on paper. That's why the Social Security is not on information like it used to be in the Navy. Because the clients who were stealing your information told that man to took it down into the state and I'll just have a good time down there. If nobody mentioned my name, I would have reported. I trust these people. I don't think they would try to volunteer and go back to jail. I think they're trying to get out of jail. And I don't think they want to know because you go on the computer and find anything you want to find about it. And looking at the papers, you don't have no idea how fast you work when you shred the stuff at the lower level. You don't have time to pick up and read your name and your address and who you is and that kind of stuff. You're working so fast. But I work, in fact, I work out now. Not because I'm not educated, just that I really can't tolerate some of the stupidness going on under the level. I don't like that. And so I work at menial levels. And I know that these people are working to get out of jail. They're not working to stay in jail if they're trustees or somebody's trusting them with documents. And that's what I want to say. I also want to say something about going back to 2001. If you have the paperwork for 2001, you and your lawyer, y'all need to go back there and computerize it. Don't nobody down here have time to go back to 2001 and find out what was going on back there. You already got paperwork because you said you had, but you didn't understand it. You have to know the formulas, the spreadsheets, and some of these people, they young, they ain't been young a real long time. So you need to get your lawyer, get y'all papers, and you put it on a computer, and maybe you can understand it. But I think the public service people are probably more honest than the people you hire to check those documents. Those are the ones that go get your information instead.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank y'all.
speaker is Mr. Dennis Thrush. Dennis Thrush, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Commissioner.
Same rules are stated in the address.
My name is Dennis Truck. I live at 9210 Hamburg Road in Northeast Dallas. I am here today about the same item. The reason that I'm concerned, I don't think that when these people show up for their assignments, that we throw somebody throws the keys to a city vehicle or a county vehicle or a county piece of equipment, especially to the true ones who are maybe 14, 15. Even the older ones may or may not have a license to drive. We wouldn't let them drive county equipment without making sure that they have the proper license, and maybe not even at that point. We really should be allowing that. Why are we allowing them to have my driver's license, my credit card number, my social security number, my grandchildren's STD results, whatever? That should not be allowed to just somebody showing up. I've heard mention of cost. We have other things in the county that they can do. There are areas of the county that really need help, whether it's picking up trash, cleaning up around fallen down houses, whatever. There's plenty of work to do, so the work is not a situation. The situation is our personal information. Yes, looking on the internet, you may be able to certainly work even get my driver's license number and my name, my address. But it happens that things happen otherwise. In some cases, you won't know about it until you go to check your credit. You want to buy a house or whatever, and you discover you've got 15 credit cards from four or 5 or 6 different cities, all maxed out and not paid. In cities you've never been to. That happens. Why should we be allowing the possibility, not saying that it will happen, but the possibility of it happening? No, it hasn't happened in the last 20, 30 years that we know about. Has it happened? Maybe. That's my concern. I think that these documents should be secured. The information should be secured and handled the way we handle county equipment by only those people that are authorized by background check or bond. Thank you very much.
All right, question has been called.
The question's been called. Judge.
May I suggest that we answer the question by voice vote, because we've got 16 revised, we have a substitute 16.
Well, the question before us is substitute 16.
Okay.
So if you are in favor of substitute 16 as laid out by Commissioner Cantrell, please signify with the amendment of Commissioner Garcia regarding the timing of review. Correct. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If you were opposed, signify by saying nay. Nay. The motion carries 3-2 vote. And let's take up our next matter, and that is, I believe, 18, correct?
Right.
Okay.
I'll move forward 18. And in that, I do need to, this is the second new policy, I do need to take out a word unsupervised on item number 1. Judge, under this, when we amended 418 within the second amended policy, I agree with Commissioner Thrush. My first and foremost concern in comparing this address, what I'm concerned and addressed in this is the security of confidential and sensitive documents. This policy puts in place strict security protocols One, it removes PSP out of handling any individual documents. Two, only allows PSP to move secured boxes, and only under strict supervision. It's on the 2 to 5 ratio in the movement of boxes. At the record center, well, let me explain how that works also. You have 5 individuals from public service. You have a public service employee that supervises those 5 individuals. They would get in a van and a trailer and go to wherever requested boxes to be moved. Those boxes must be secured, and that department that is requesting those boxes to be moved is required to supply an individual employee to supervise with that public service employee. So you now have 2 people supervising the loading of these secured boxes onto a pallet or dolly and rolled out to the bid. So, and then placed into a locked trailer. So you have a 2 to 5 ratio of supervision. The boxes are secured. In addition to that, they're in a locked trailer that the PSP clients do not have access to during transport. With regards to the record center, the ratio would be 1 to 4 ratio, 1 supervisor for 4 individuals in the unsecured area. Because in the unsecured area, what record center uses those enrollees for is to break down boxes, to clean, sweep, mop, vacuum, those kinds of things. Inside the secure area, it's on a 1-to-1 supervision basis. And the way I understand it, and Ms. Henson is here, and she can certainly explain it better than I can, but what they use these individuals for within the secured area is as they're pulling boxes, they put them onto a forklift or whatever you have up there, and then they bring them down, and then they're checking barcode. And as that record center employee calls out the barcode, then that public service person picks up the box and puts it on the crate. And then they go through that whole process, the whole time being 1-to-1 supervision. Then they shrink wrap those boxes. And then that crate is picked up by the vendor to shred. So never at any time during that process, during the movement of boxes or at the record center, do individuals have access to individual documents. Now, with regards to, well, let me go ahead and finish this. It allows us to use existing resources without having to add any additional employees. Placement of secured boxes into lock trailers is not accessible to any PSP employee during that transit. Not only is this reasonable, but it's an appropriately measured response that establishes public trust that sensitive and confidential information is protected. In addition to that, it leverages resources. It provides for efficiency, productivity, timeliness, and cost effectiveness for taxpayers. And I say that because of this. We have over 38,000 boxes that community service moves during the year. Under some of the plans that have been profitable, we could hire individuals, put on full-time employees to do nothing but move boxes. That affects, in my opinion, efficiency and also productivity. The community service moved my office from my old road and bridge to the new road and bridge. They moved Commissioner Dickey's furniture and everything out to her new road and bridge. I dare say there's nobody in this audience that's with the county that hasn't had a public service program move their stuff that need to be moved. And it's not just moving documents within boxes. It could be any type of it could be copy paper, it could be pencils and staplers, those kinds of things. So in order to leverage the resources that we have, we are putting into place strict protocols, security protocols, in order to make this possible. And that's why I'm moving forward with everything. Yes.
I'm perplexed that we're going to such lengths to keep public service in the document business. The judge has worked with the staff and has found that this document shredding can be either revenue neutral or or revenue positive. And the question is here, in a very simple phrases, we want to see public service people, many of whom have criminal backgrounds, out of the document business. And that's the bottom line. We can obfuscate it with all kinds of machinations so that none of us can quite understand what's being said, but the bottom line, we want public service out of the document business. There's plenty of other stuff for them to do.
Any further discussion? I have comments. Any further discussion?
Good, I will. If I can respond to that. You know, it's really to say that we're trying to cloud the issue. The issue is very clear on Court Order 16 that was passed. We took public service out of the document business. They no longer get those documents and sort through those and put them in different bins. They no longer shred. We now have locked bins that everything's put into, and it's taken to the vendor for them to shred. So they are out of the document business. The question before us under this order is a movement of boxes and the leveraging of assets that we have within Dallas County for efficiencies and productivity and timeliness. And that's what the purpose behind this deal is, establishing those security protocols that will assure us that the documents are secure.
And I'm just going to add to that I believe this is a very good compromise. You know, secures documents the way that we have discussed, and at the same time keeps public safety personnel as part of the operation. And I will be glad to review this policy with staff. Thank you, Judge. I will be supporting Commissioner President.
And let me state my position on that. This is not a compromise at all. This is a codification of public service being allowed by rule now to handle sensitive information. First of all, it violates our transparency policy that things will be briefed one week and discussed the next. For 8 months, I've worked with staff and fellow commissioners to try to work out a compromise to take public service enrollees out of the document shredding scenario. The court's vote today is by majority, and I have to respect that majority. But what proponents of public service being having access to those boxes have done is they have placed a wholly different matter on the agenda to codify the movement of records that are not subject to document destruction. That should be briefed one week and heard the next. I would ask that it be pulled and presented in compliance with our policies. On the bottom line issue, there's no compromise here at all, and there's no protection here at all. This is essentially codifying that they will handle boxes. As far as securing the boxes, whether that means tape or shrink wrap or string or whatever that's going to be is unclear, because this policy was put forth on Thursday and did not have any of that information in it. But to that extent, they'll be the ones that are doing that. Steve Mice has told me, if they want to tape, if they want to shrink wrap, we'll be the ones that are taping it and shrink wrapping it. Now, so this policy as it sits has no protections. What it has are statements that I think all 5 of us agree with. It says that PSP enrollees are valuable. We all agree with that. It says that PSP enrollees should be used to move things but not have access to sensitive records. I think we all agree with that. I would suggest that we pull this, we adequately brief it with our transparency policy, and we ask staff, is there a mechanism by which we can use PSP enrollees that offer adequate protections? Clearly, having people watch unbackground tested people around boxes and not expecting those people to need to go to the restroom, check their cell phone, look the other way, or sneeze, to me, is not at all adequate security. Perhaps we could come up with adequate security, but in the spirit of following our own rules and in the spirit of trying to find a compromise that does that, and not trying to push through this without adequate briefing, I'd like for us to agree to pull it and have staff look at it, bring it back, brief it. If you have the votes to do it unchanged and without any, I mean, this is your whole policy. The whole policy is a half a page long. I think probably we want to have more safeguards for the public if we wanted to do that. So that would be my substitute motion, would be to pull this, as our transparency rules clearly state, you brief things one week and you hold the vote to another week. And furthermore, my motion is that when we pull it, we instruct staff to work with interested commissioners and find a potential safe way to move boxes. So that's my motion. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second that motion.
All right.
Judge, I'd like to comment on the motion.
Yeah, sure.
First of all, with regards to the adequate briefing, briefing is to lay out a particular subject. This matter, take boxes, secure boxes, was laid out in January of this year through a briefing. In addition to that, it was also laid out through a substitute court order substitute court order on June 5th, a substitute to your motion that I made. And it was discussed then, and I laid out, and I still have my comments, 3 pages of comments that I read into the record. So I think it has been efficient, it has been sufficiently laid out. With regards to the comment that you credited Mr. Mines with, if under this policy about his enrollees or his PSP clients going in and having to take the boxes, if we have a policy that those boxes are required to be secured, and they're required to supply an individual to supervise along with the community service personnel, when they get there and those boxes are not taped, and or they don't have an individual there to supervise, then they get back in their van and they head back to where they come from. In other words, and I understand there's training that has to be involved, and I understand this is an emotional issue for you, but with regards to no protection, we can argue the issue. In your Court Order 16, you specifically put in there that community service PSP clients could pick those bins up. They have documents inside of that secure bin. It's a 1-to-5 ratio. In this court order, it's a 2-to-5 ratio, and it's a secure box. It is not an individual document. So when you say there's no protection, I disagree with you on that, and I think there is adequate protection, and that's the purpose. I apologize that I only have 1 page for a policy, but I think it was pretty succinct. It tells you have to secure the box. It tells you how many people you have to observe. It tells you that you cannot allow the PSP clients to have access to the locked trailer. So, in my opinion, it was pretty succinct, and I don't think the length of the document makes a difference. Thank you.
Understanding that, do you have a problem with us pulling this and allowing staff to look at it and come up with a policy that perhaps we can all agree with? As I work with staff extensively on document security during the destruction process, and this matter is something that we are discussing now on 3 days' notice, although it may have been discussed years ago or months ago. Do you have a problem
Yes, I do.
with that?
Yes, I do.
So you don't want to do that?
I'm willing to vote on your substitute. I won't be voting against your substitute.
All right, call the question, and the question, unless there's any other comments, assuming none from
one more comment, just in conclusion, and that is that the rhetorical question. Can anyone understand all this convoluted moving, shrink wrapping? What the judge says, I agree with. There's been no compromise here, and there is still no security for the public's records.
There shouldn't be compromise when we're talking about securing these documents and securing these boxes. So that's why I'm moving forward.
Any other comments before we call the question? And the question is a substitute motion, and that motion is this: in keeping with our transparency policy that calls for briefing a policy, except for in the case of an emergency, on a separate week from taking the vote, and in the spirit of trying to work with staff to come up with a policy that all believe and staff believes will secure the information of the public from potential identity theft. The question is to have this pulled until a further meeting. Second, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
The motion fails on a 3-2 vote.
Okay, 18 is before us, Judge. We got a motion in a second.
Right. We have a motion and a second on 18. I believe the matter has been thoroughly discussed. Is there any discussion on 18? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of 18, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. All right. On to the next one. And I think our next court order that was pulled for discussion was 19?
Yes, I asked that number 27 be pulled. And number 27, for those of you who may not have an agenda in front of you, is approving the expenditure of $2,672 to purchase new server hardware, disk storage, and installation services from various vendors using state DIR contracts to build the county's co-located data center. Funding for this request is available from the Major Technology Fund. This has never been briefed. It was briefed, something like it was briefed back in October of 2011, but the figures have been revised, so it not only wasn't briefed recently, but it was different figures that were given to us at that time. And I don't think it is helpful to the court when we say that something was briefed 8 months ago, because there's so many issues that take place in front of the court that we can't possibly remember briefs 8 months ago. I'm going to vote no on this because I don't believe the public wants us to spend $2,600,000 on something just because it's put before us and briefed on the same day. I think it's a little arrogant to expect that the taxpayer would pay this kind of money with no briefing and no explanation. So I'm going to vote no on number 27.
I'll move court order 27, and the figure is $2,672,000.
That's what I said.
I said, all right. And Judge, just for the record, be factual on this. This was briefed on October 25th. It's Commissioner's Court order approving, and Commissioner Dickey was absent at that time. So I understand why she may not remember the relocation of the county's data center and secondary server room to the third-party site and the procurement of all necessary hardware, software, and services. Funding will be provided from the MCDF and NTF, and it gave the timelines, etc. In addition to that, this issue was briefed again on April the 3rd of 2012, again on May 15th, 2012. So, and subsequently pulled at that time for the pool. So, these, it has been a fluid deal. moved to another site. So we don't have another issue where the basement floods and it shuts off the electricity and knocks us down. Or where we have the air conditioners not able to handle the Texas heat and then shut down our systems. So this has been an ongoing process, and it was highly recommended in the Taylor report.
That is correct, and one of the highest priority for security.
That's correct. And so in order to keep, and I must applaud the district clerk and the county clerk, they have a backup system for their items that they pay for themselves to get relocated. So it's very important that we move forward with this.
Again, my point is that we need to have these briefings the week before. I received a revised substitute of different figures. The bottom line is this court needs to brief things at least a week before so that we can have an opportunity to study it. I'm not going to accept $2,672,000 without a briefing. Maybe it was done in April, maybe it was done last October. This substitute says it was, but the point is that we need to be briefed and we need to know where we are. Now, I've noticed when I make these comments about IT that one of my predecessors, a female predecessor, whenever we bring this up, we're told in the past or now, we're told that we don't know what we're talking about. We haven't read the stuff, we haven't been to the meeting. Little lady, we just don't know what we're talking about.
Commissioner, recounting things that were disparaging is outside of our purview as well. If we could, let's all stick with the issues and the matter before us and not recount any prior actions or prior statements of others. Thank you. Are there any other comments? I've got a request to call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Nay. Okay, we have one nay, 4 ayes. The next court order that was pulled, and I believe the last one that was pulled on my list is 31, is that correct? So do I have a motion on those? I have a motion by Commissioner Price, a second by Commissioner Cantrell. Is there any discussion?
And my comment, last week I had questions about this, and I said that the tech share plan for IT is certainly good to share costs. That's not the issue. The issue is that we need to know where we are on this program, and looking at all of the costs that we've had over the past, we need to be sure, this court needs to be assured that we haven't already paid for this in some form or fashion. We need to have a roadmap as to where we're going. We need to have a briefing as to where this fits in. And I can't vote for something not knowing whether or not we might have paid for it before. So I'm voting no on 31. And I'm going to continue to vote no on IT expenditures that aren't explained to us and in which we don't get the big picture, or are not given the big picture. I'm not interested in the toenail on the elephant or looking at the trunk. The court needs to look at the whole elephant and to understand where we're headed and where we are at this time.
And Mr. Victor, just following up with what Commissioner Vicky said, you are preparing a briefing for the court. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am, I am. Also, as far as the tech share program itself, as far as the ACMS prosecutor module, this is basically a new initiative that was actually started as far as the planning process in August of last year. I think there was initial dollars were approved for the CUC to start the planning process. These are the initial dollars as far as the developmental efforts are concerned. And I also know, based on follow-up conversations with Charles Gray from the CUC, is that actually now with the addition of additional counties basically participating in the program, the actual costs are actually projected to go down depending upon those additional counties, I guess, officially adopting the program.
So that the record will not be convoluted, Major?
Yes, sir.
Have we paid for this?
No, so we haven't. This is a new program. Like I said, we did do some initial funding for the planning process to do the 50 apps and those things, but no, so this is new funding.
We spent $156,471. Exactly.
Mr. Victor,
Yes, ma'am.
this is one of the biggest programs right now, one of the biggest initiatives
Yes,
in Lebanon County. Who is in charge of this initiative?
By default, I am. The brief was actually prepared by Mr. Ron Stretcher. I think he's out of the office today. But the thing is that typically we choreograph these things. As a CIO, I'm responsible for all the technology projects in the county.
Who has been handling it? Because Mr. Stretcher came to see me the other day and told me he was in charge of this.
Well, again, he basically handles things from the business side of it. So the issue is that the technology projects are something that kind of by default, I basically oversee, I have purview over, but he basically actually oversees the business side of it and working with CDC from that particular perspective. But he and I basically joined at the hip and work very closely together. As far as the project is concerned, Craig Marcy is the gentleman that has been acting as a senior project manager for it, and in my opinion, been doing a great job to make that come to a reality. And so again, we get this a new program, new funding, based upon the directive that the court had given to the staff for last year, and now this is the fruition of that project. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that information was as far as what was being replaced was actually contained in the course briefing on last week.
I wasn't aware that Mr. Stretcher was involved in the financial applications of this county.
Again, based upon even in the table report, what they had done is that we wanted to try to make sure that we aligned the technology to the business needs of the actual county. Mr. Stretcher, as the criminal justice director, basically represents, again, this business side. What we typically do is we basically partner with them to make sure that those things continue to flow, so that as the commissioners so aptly noted, we make sure that the IT expenditures are going to meet the needs based upon the priorities of the county.
Major, this court appointed him as a project manager of ACMS adult.
Mr. Stretcher?
Yes.
What is Mr. Stretcher's title? Director of Criminal Justice. Does he have a professional computer background?
Again, he's focused on the business side. He represents all the business users, including DA, judges. So it's important that he have this overview of the whole project.
Request to call a question. Any other comments from Commissioner Judge and Commissioner Reed? Anyone else? We'll call that question. Yeah. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Nay. All right, that takes us through, I believe, every court order that we can discuss here. We will now be reconvening the public session and recess for our briefing session to consider items for a subsequent session. Martin?
Sure, Judge Commissioners. Item 1 in the briefing agenda is the county judge report of the month board meeting.
And I just want to say something really brief. First of all, I want to commend all the winners. In this briefing version, we can see all the people, and I really thank the staff for naming all of them from June till the present. And of course, I want to congratulate my superintendent for Vernon Bridge 4, which is here with us today, Mr. Don Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy, would you please stand up and be recognized? You know, we really Mr. Ibarra, you know, our assistant superintendent is here with him as well. So most thank you for being here as well. And of course, to all the other winners, I really believe that you are the ones who work for this coming to move forward. So thank you again, Judge, for doing this, and Mr. Martin and staff for bringing it together.
The judge's office also would like to recognize the additional winners. The auditor's office has Miles Kroger. I don't know if he's here, he's staying. CCC number 4 is Dequetta Freeman. HHS has Evangeline Reynolds. IT has Mr. Pete Garcia. JP31 has Yvette Goodwin, Betty Alvarado, and Norma Herrera. R&B 4, of course, Don Kennedy. The Sheriff's Office has Sandra Chambers. And Tax formal agenda. I do have item number 4, Household Hazardous Waste Program. Recommend approval of the Household Hazardous Waste Program fiscal year 2013 budget, including the use of $80,000 prior year carryover funds. No questions on that. We'll move right to budget, which is item number 8. Item 8A, you have your conference travel training requests. 8B, you have hiring freeze exception and council precinct 5, county clerk, district clerk, and health and human services. Item 8C, recommends approval of the contract with the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles and submission to the state by the July 31st, 2012 deadline. And with that, there are no questions. We'll move right to your budget presentation. Mr. Brown.
Commissioner, there's a couple different things I want to bring up while I restart my computer to shut it down. One is that that contract with the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles, we'll go ahead and execute that and get that back to them before the end of the year. That will be done before the end of the month. We'll then do a forward in August to ratify that. We'll have the judge's office stand. And 2 is that Jim Cook, who was recognized out of the treasurer's office for his retirement recently, we're going to bring him back as a part-time employee or an extra help employee because the individual who filled his position resigned unexpectedly. And so this will allow us to continue to keep moving forward and the replacement. We will switch microphones again. Try that now. Okay, can you hear me better? We're using this microphone. Let's see. Make sure it's good morning, by the way. I'm doing the July 10th FY 2013 budget update. It's rather short, but good news. The 2012 ending balance was about $17.8 million more than the target. The 2013 revenues are projected to be down about $12.8 million. County contribution to the employee retirement increased from 10% to 10.8%, which was a $1.3 million cost. We've moved back the county records staff out of the escrows that had run out of money into the general funds. That had a cost of about $1.8 million. I would like to thank the county clerk, John Warren, for allowing us to have that staff in there for the last several years, because obviously that had a very positive impact on the general fund. The 2013 employer health insurance is projected to be at budget, so what it is for 2012 as well when you're in Table 1. The good news there is that I anticipate that as long as everything continues to track this way, that we'll have no change in the employee contribution for 2013. I think the employees will appreciate that a lot because there was a big shift last year. The 2013 extra help line item was increased about $563,000 due to the general fund or the general election that will occur in November, and then utilities increased a little bit. So what does that mean? I'm going to go straight to the 2013 line item. You can still see where, oh, by the way, this is the first time I'm using Virginia's revenues. Usually the first couple presentations, I'm doing my revenues, and then we transition into Virginia, the county auditor's revenues, who by state law is ultimately responsible for that. I'm pleased to say that I was very pleased with her numbers. They actually came in a little better than I was projecting, so I like that. For 2013, you'll see that I still have in there a $3.6 million negative number. That really represents your tax decrease. I'm still using the 1.25% decrease. We will get our final number in a couple weeks, and I anticipate between that number or slightly better. You'll see that the sheriff fee number is up about $110,000. That's just an increase. Very positive news on the vehicles. You see that there's $1.1 million of additional revenue coming in off. That's the new sales tax that we get off of new vehicles. As you've noticed, the paper plates are in red in the newspaper. Our vehicles purchases have kind of been going up, and this is that money starting to show up. Parking revenue, it's down almost $600,000. That's really because our B-lot initiative is a little slow taking off. I'm pleased to note on Monday morning, going over the sanitation meeting, that parking lot is starting to fill up with paying customers. So
Most county employees,
there may be, actually, I've seen some county employees parking there. I prefer that closer parking, but they are paying. The compliance with the people who have their little paying tickets seems to be very good. So we'll continue to monitor that. If it gets to the point where I've noticed that there are probably too many sheriff cars over there, so if it gets to the point where it gets filled up, we'll have to get back with the sheriff's office to ensure that they only use the number that they were originally allocated to have.
Well, on that, before we get up that, over the last month or 2 months, are we on the right monthly projections to get to our number for next year, or?
Virginia has a revenue there of an increase of $150,000. It's still going to be less than the $800,000 we projected to have in that for that initiative. It's moving in the right direction. I think that's a conservative number, and I think that ultimately, hopefully, for 2013, we'll see a bigger number there. But I see
now at 150. Right.
$150,000 increase over what we're having in 2012.
In 2012.
2012, if you go to the columns, in 2012, we're 610 short of what we originally projected. And that's, as I said, primarily that lot. And then as you go into 2013, you can see she's trending it up. It's just not going to be back to where we originally
Keep in mind, prior to that, it was zero.
It was zero, exactly. No, it still has money, it just wasn't as much and as quick as we'd originally hoped. Next line down, you'll see that where the public works, which is really the bond money, the road bond money transfer that we did in 2012 has been removed in 2013. There is sheriff traffic revenue. I'm showing it with a zero number in there. In talking with the county judge, we are hopeful that the city of Dallas will contribute about $800,000, and we're hopeful that RTC will contribute somewhere about $1 million.
I'll double check that again this morning, but I think that is the deal is done.
So there may be some shifts as we move forward. I mean, you've got to have Virginia in the loop, but the $1 million and the $1.5 million that we're supposed to get in 2012, they still haven't been able to release it at the RTC because the state hasn't allowed them to release it. So it may be one of those things that at the last minute in the budget process, you're going to see it decreasing the 2012 revenue down, but you'll see me increase it in 2013 for a net zero. It's just going to be a timing of when that money's available and comes into us.
On that sheriff's traffic piece, you will see us requesting to look at $400,000 for sheriff's traffic, but we recoup that on a first come, first waterfall basis. And there's some things going on in negotiation with TxDOT over licenses to tow cars and whatnot. We're likely to recoup all of that.
Down on the expenditure side, you'll see that there's about $3.3 million additional salary money. That is primarily going to be the increase in retirement and then the county clerk staff being moved in there. There's also a small increase in there related to the Grand Prairie Truancy Court that will be coming online. I believe it's January, Shane, is that correct?
When is that coming on?
The building should be finished by the end of February, so the tree support will come on after that.
Right. And historically, what we've done is we'll bring some staff in a little early to get things set up. You know, it all depends on when the building is available and what we can do. And we still have to work through the agreement with Grand Prairie ISD.
That's what I thought that.
Okay.
Who's talking with the judge?
Should be the judge and the trainer. I don't know.
And it's really,
Yes, it's Carl.
okay, because I believe her that,
Yes.
Okay.
There's still a relationship. After you go to a court, they better do.
Well, of course, well, I don't know, that's what I said.
Yes, we're aware of some hiccups.
Right, there's,
So we get
I was out there, just want to make sure, okay.
We're working through those particular
Okay.
Okay.
You'll see that I have core costs going up a little bit, just a typical trend line. You'll see that the utility costs are going up a little bit. Generally, it's about $5 million in additional expenses out of this presentation. End up with an ending balance of about $51.5 million. Target would be $46 million. So we are looking at a positive, first time I've been able to use that phrase in a very long time, of about $5.4 million at this point in time.
Standards.
That is the numbers. So here's kind of where I see where we're going from here. I'm recommending that we do no DDACs in 2013, but that we do allow departments to bring forward DDA initiatives. Remember, about 3 years ago, we froze all the DDA initiatives because we needed to capture all of the savings, and this would allow us to have that gain-sharing program of where the department would benefit of any initiatives, and then the county would benefit. So I want to open that up, and I think you'll start seeing some briefings coming in August, September of some things departments had already lined up for savings that they'll allow now to be able to benefit some back for their including funds for their DDS. I'm recommending that we go ahead and fund $150,000 for reclassification. We also have not done reclassifications for 5 years, and there's some positions out there that truly do need to get looked at. I've been keeping a record of all of the ones that have been submitted, and I anticipate in the next couple of weeks there may be a handful more coming forward. But then those will get pushed into the budget, and then Maddie will do her magic and bring those before the Civil Service Commission as her time permits. Beginning October 12, I'm recommending that departments no longer be required to hold the 90-day hiring freeze. I want to thank the departments that have done that over the last 4 years. It has really been beneficial for us, but I think it's time where they now need to go back to focusing on filling their positions and working towards that goal versus managing to keeping them vacant for the 90 days.
Well, even that, while conceptually.
I think generally this is much more, it pulls a little work off some of the departments that have staff that submit the requests. It pulls work off of my staff who has to write up the requests. And I think that departments are cognizant now of they can live for periods of times, and so I anticipate the majority of the departments will continue to abide by, if I don't need to fill it today, hold it for a couple period of times, but they will. As if the economy continues to get better, Maddie will also be telling you that it'll get more difficult to fill these positions. And so rather than wait 90 days and then discover you can't fill it for another 4 weeks because you can't find a qualified candidate, it's probably better for the allow them to start the process as soon as it becomes vacant. I also have in the works, and what I'll be doing over the next 3 weeks is preparing them so that you'll see those in the first couple weeks of August. The Public Works Department has a reorganization that I'm working through and will be presented to the Commission and Court. We have a Justice of the Peace Juror solution that has a small cost that we need to get with Judge Lowry about and see if we can get that finished up.
And I want to thank you, Mr. Brown, and of course the judiciary, Judge Lowry and his staff, as well as the Justice of the Peace that are working on this. And colleagues, as you all asked me to do, we're working in something that we believe will work for both sides, from having the reviewers, Justice of the Peace, in the mornings, as they have been requested for over 2 years. Still work in progress, but it couldn't happen without Mr. Brown, Mr. Stretcher, and of course the judges.
Thank you for that leadership. That's very difficult.
Oh, I'm enjoying it.
Thank you.
The Public Defender has a request for some additional staff to assist on the mental health, so I'll be working that through. They also have a request that I'll be looking at in bringing in capital murder trials into their office versus appointed attorneys. It's going to be one of those that if we choose to go that route, it'll only be because we realize there's no cost savings. It's going to be an interesting analysis that I'll have to do.
We realize there will be cost savings?
We would only do that if there was a cost savings. Because we know how much we're paying for court-appointed attorneys on capital murders, and we also know what this person would cost if they were brought them on as an employee. So we'd have to we'll look at a historical trend line to see whether or not it's cost effective.
When you say this person, would we contemplate there be one capital murder team?
We anticipate there would be a lead attorney who would do that, and that they would have whole existing staff would be their secretary.
Secretary would rotate.
Yes, it would also be a public defender.
Right, but rotate would be several of the top people.
It would be whichever court it came out of. In other words, if you came out of a district court, they already have public defenders in there. So you would bring the capital murder public defenders in there, and then you would utilize the existing public defenders as the secretary. The Sheriff's Office has a human resource reorg that we need to push forward and take a look at, using some detached staff that they need to get back. And they're also going to, so we'll be looking at some changes there and possibly some additional staff. Facilities Department is probably going to need a warehouse person as we move forward on the medical mod. because they're going to be losing some of the space they've been storing their supplies, so they're going to go to a little bit, keeping less on hand and having to order, and so you'll need to stay on top of the inventory. It's a little bit firmer than we've been doing, so that I'll bring forward. And then I anticipate there'll be some other requests. All total, I'm hoping to keep these types of requests somewhere under $500,000 in cost. I think that's reasonable, and that won't lead too much into, for the first time, I'm able to say what we'll be doing for pay raises. For planning purposes, a 2% pay rate merit increase would be about 5.6, 3% would be 8.4. Don't believe we'll get to a 4%, but obviously if we could, I think that'd be a good thing. Maddie and I will sit down and then over the next couple of weeks and we'll develop a guideline of how we would administer the pay plans as we've done in the past. There may be some recommendation in those guidelines that would be something such as it's a merit pool so that the managers have discretion on how they want to allocate those funds, but that if someone's been here for 4 years, that we require that they have a minimum of a 2% pay raise, just so that you don't end up with the situation of somebody who's been here for 4 years and ends up getting no pay raise just because the merit system didn't work then in that manner. I don't see that being the case, but I think we would want to put that type of a safeguard.
We're doing what we've always done.
We've always had guidelines, yes.
Civil services.
And those guidelines will be brought back to the Commissioner's Court for approval. That's always how we've done it, so that the court knows how we're going to administer it.
Just clear on that, for those who've been here for 4 years, or more out during this time with no cost of living adjustments, that will be a hard and fast forward.
No, you didn't, no code. No, you said code.
I think if we, let's assume it's a merit of 3%, we would probably put a low end cap saying that somebody who's been here 4 years with no raise at a minimum gets a 2% raise. It still allows the manager to use performance at their discretion of saying, I'm giving you 2% and not the 3, but it also puts us in a position where nobody would get a 0, which I think would be detrimental to the county.
But, Maddie, I know you're a strong merit person and you don't like that, but morale-wise, we can't afford to have people we haven't given a raise in 4 years.
No, we're looking at the option. It's just, what's
And I think the merit pool obviously has a lot more flexibility for managers because it allows them to, if someone was hired a month ago, they're not automatically getting a raise. They're happy to have the job. And it also allows them to, they may have somebody who's retiring in November, and so you also don't have, you're not going to give them a raise. You can call them and tell them you love them and everything, but you're going to say, hey, I'm going to use the money elsewhere.
But it gives the flexibility to give something if the manager believes that it's been given.
Absolutely.
And those guidelines will be coming from.
Right. And I anticipate there'll be
Budget,
some
budget,
dialogue
and
and debate as we.
Budget and HR.
Yes. It's really HR's job. Yeah. In the past, historically, what I do is I tell her how much, and then she develops the guidelines.
The
I want to make sure you stay in the loop because I'm on the third one.
I know where you're. Just kind of heads up, on July 23rd, I'll get the certified roll. I'll give you guys an email like I always do to tell you where we're at and what it tells us. That will be really the last major piece of information that I need on the revenue side. My staff continues to build the 2013 budget, and so there will be some adjustments as we push forward through those expenses. But we're being real close to having everything in there the way we want, so that we'll know what the expense side looks like. So sometime in August, I'll start pushing these programs back out to you, and then we'll have a final decision on how big the pay raise will be. We will have public hearings on the budget on the 21st and the 28th, and then September 11th, we'll set the tax rate and then adopt the budgets with October 1st, 2013, beginning of the new fiscal year. All I had in place of that.
Food you read me, a little question. You still have one speaker.
We have a speaker. Before we go to that, let me take a moment of personal privilege and commend all of the members of the Commissioners Court and the staff and the Sheriff's Department and all of our partners. I want to knock on wood when I say this, but it seems with the economic numbers that we have here in Dallas County, we're coming out of at least here in Dallas County, we're coming out of this recession, and we're we're getting in our recovery. The departments have done a phenomenal job giving up over the last 3 or 4 years and working with it. Particularly want to recognize the district, the county clerk, the sheriff, and John Ames and the DA, all of whom have worked with us to get that done. And it's been a team effort, and it's great that we're sitting here talking about raises and how much, who gets what minimum, as opposed to how many people are losing their jobs. So good job on everybody's part of that. Will the speaker please read the rules of decorum for our, or we actually, he's already heard, the remaining speaker. The remaining speaker is Mr. Arthur Barrett Black, please. Mr. Black, Arthur Barrett Black. Arthur Barrett Black. I don't believe Mr. Black is here. Our remaining matter is to go into closed session. We'll begin that closed session in approximately 1 minute. We also need to please get in there quickly today, because I think at least Commissioner Garcia and I have a commitment to be in Irving at 12 o'clock. So this court is now reconvened in public session on recess for its closed session as authorized by chapter the Texas Government Code as previously posted. Our session will begin in 1 minute. Any action as a result of the closed session will take place in open session.